I've known that woman for years. She'd never be an accomplice to anything. It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another. Oh dear, this is most troubling, but surely the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner, is it? I have had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much. I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture. Accusing someone without right evidences is not a proper job, is he? I won't have it. Somewhat unsurprisingly, it seems the introduction of this waxwork model to the proceedings has polarized opinion. Given that its face is obscured and its build in no way resembles that of I thought it was a typo, but it wasn't a typo, and I got confused. In no way resembles that of the victim. I can only applaud my learned friend's temerity at suggesting it as Mr. Osmond's body double. I wonder what so they could totally use the body. Cause if you're looking at someone from 60 feet or whatever away, then yeah, I think people would have trouble being oh, that was definitely him or whatever. Yes, the applause is deafening. And yes, I know it seems extraordinary, but that's the point. That's why I have a strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realizes. What are you thinking? I can't explain why at the moment, but I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used, why it had to be this model. Really? A reason why nothing else would do, you mean? Yes, and I'm convinced it's something far more significant than whether or not the model looked like the victim. Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely at all costs. Yes, agreed. I have to find a way out of this. Do I still keep my, my strikes? If you are ready, counsel, you may proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. Alright, he seems fine. He seems fine. Okay, but the waxwork the man stole has nothing to do with the coroner. Why would you assume that? Well, quite simply because that unsettling swindler has no relationship with the woman, does he? True. As it stands, we don't know of any connection. Oh gosh, but it would be delightfully romantic if they were somehow to have a mutual interest in the waxwork. Romantic? A woman of society such as myself views everything in terms of relationships, you know. Well, you learn something new every day, even if you don't want to. One might wonder about a possible relationship between the defendant and this coroner woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor just there. This woman may be more astute than I've been giving her credit for. If that's the woman's stance, then perhaps demonstrating some connection between the waxwork and Dr. Scythe would be enough? Yes, I agree. As soon as we have even a whiff of a connection, she'll be the first to know. But, okay, so if this guy, which juror is he? I think number 6, right? He was the first one, I forgot. I've known that woman for years. Oh no, maybe that wasn't important. I mean, it was interesting. I guess it gave you a kind of a clue if you could find something that connects them. Oh yeah, him. Okay, yeah. What do you have to say about it? What sort of problems? Let's just say we have run into each other on numerous occasions while I've been performing on the street. Right, I see. Obviously, artists such as myself cannot appear on stage as we work in close proximity to our audiences, so we perform our great magic in parks, on street corners, and the like. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult, sir. Damn, he's twirling that damn gun. Do you have something to say in response to that, Mr. Ottermole? Who are you calling a mass murderer? Oh, sorry, my mistake. I got confused because I heard you look like him. I don't look anything like the man. You want to be locked up, Sonny? Thanks, Mr. Sholmes. Perhaps we could move on. I was really wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response to what juror number 3 just said. And clearly you do. Back in my day, back in the good old days, it wasn't like this. What was it like, sir? We worked our fingers to the bone to earn the public's trust, we did. And by Jove, we earned it. People respected us back then. Respected you? No one would have called a coroner into question in them days. A coroner's report was the hallmark of an investigation done right, especially when Dr. Courtney Stevens put her name on it. She was the best of the best, and the apple of the force's eye. Oh, hold on a minute. What are you talking about? Who's Courtney Stevens? Oh, sorry, got a bit carried away there. Stevens is Dr. Scythe's maiden name. Her maiden name? So that was before she was married. Of course, yes, silly me. It's Scythe now, isn't it? Stevens? I'm sure I've seen that name somewhere recently. Oh my god, wait, did we... Some Stevens? Did we see some Stevens? See, now I'm curious because they're like, oh, we've seen it somewhere? I'm like, oh no, have I? Have I? Stevens? What the fuck? Oh, she was there. This is her, Courtney Stevens. Oh, she wrote this report too? Well, I guess maybe that's somehow a connection to the whatever case. I guess that's how they're connected. I'm sure I've seen that name somewhere. Okay, anyway, the point is, those were the great days of policing, not like now. Sorry to interrupt, sir, but do you think you could change your statement to include that name? Well, yes, I don't see why not. Oh, because they're connected because she was the one who wrote the autopsy report on the, like, the actual guy. Oh, they're not the wax work. Okay, yeah, she has something to do with this wax work. She knew the guy. Those two statements clearly contradict each other. Good gracious, whose statements do you refer, counsel? So, juror number 2? Oh gosh, me? What can I do for you? I presume that you heard what juror number 6 said in his statement. It's brought to light that the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Scythe, or whatever, which in turn has revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before. Well, naturally, as a woman of society, I find such connections and relationships irresistible. But, oh golly, I'm afraid I fail to see what you mean. Dr. Scythe's maiden name is Stevens, and through that name, the coroner is very definitely linked to the waxwork of the killer. The defense has evidence to prove it. My goodness, evidence, you say? How utterly enthralling. Counsel, the court cannot overlook that last remark. I very much hope there is substance to your claim. Of course, my lord. I would ask the court to look at this, the evidence that clearly links Dr. Scythe to the mass murderer known as the Professor. This one. I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago. A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does that have? It is, of course, from the autopsy of the person portrayed in the waxwork, the killer known as the Professor. The Professors? But the man was a capital offender, so... That's right. This is the certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives few details. But what's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it. Courtney Stevens. Oh my, Courtney Stevens. Strike a light. It appears that the professor's autopsy was conducted by Dr. Scythe 10 years ago. And a few days ago, Mr. Drebber was very deliberately stole the waxwork of the professor from Madame Tussspell's. A waxwork that doesn't in fact resemble the victim, Mr. Ostman, at all. And do you suppose there's some unsavory relationship between those events? Absolutely, I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind that the professor case is at the heart of a link that we have yet to uncover. between Dr. Courtney Scythe and Mr. Enoch Drebber. Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships. This is all most extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further. Quite right. We can't let this trial come to an end now, not while there's this cloud of suspicion hanging over the yard's best coroner. It wasn't like this in my day, but we're still here to uphold justice in the end. I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever in the bird cage. But you claim the whole instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a trick. That I did, but there's more than one way to pull a rabbit out of a hat, isn't there? Sorry? I grant you, given that this cage appeared from amidst an explosion, there'd have been no need to use a real person. But if a waxwork had been used, the culprit could at least have had the decency to make it look like the victim. I'm not sure exactly how much criminals are governed by decency. The point is, if you're going to make a claim about that waxwork being inside the bird cage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science. I suppose we should expect nothing less than a logical argument from a fellow of the Royal Society, but that perhaps means his mind could be changed if we manage to present suitable evidence. I have evidence. There was a glass piece inside the helmet. Actually, I have something I'd like you to see, sir. Oh, I must warn you that I firmly believe it's only wise to trust men in white coats. So given your jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to a sense of trepidation here. So you don't trust anyone in black? Looking in the mirror must be very tiring. I do have some evidence. This glass piece? From the folds of the... Oh, it was in the... Oh yeah, it was in the pocket, not the helmet. It was in the pocket of the guy. Here. What's that? A piece of glass? Though it's unusually thick for glass. Yes, it's a piece of broken glass that we found inside the jacket on the waxwork. As you say, it's not ordinary glass though. It's very thick and clearly made for extra strength. Much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower. The Crystal Tower. Holy smoke. Exactly, the centerpiece of the Great Exhibition, where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the birdcage fell from above and smashed through a window of that special glass. From whence this small piece originated. Is that it? Precisely. So what do you say? Now that clear evidence in support of the assertion has been placed before you. Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coats as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say color shouldn't come into it. In light of what you've shown me here, yes, I feel obligated to change my position on the matter. In that case, juror number 4, you will amend your statement now, please. The presence of that glass leaves me in little doubt that the waxwork was indeed in the birdcage. I guess both of them? Because she wants evidence and we just gave him evidence, so... Those two statements clearly contradict each other. Good gracious, to whose statements do you refer? If you could put down your corn for a moment, juror number 5. Oh, you mean me? You've pointed out that it's wrong to make an accusation without evidence, but the accusation that the waxwork model was inside the second birdcage on the day in question is not without supportive evidence, as the defense demonstrated to the jurors sitting beside you. Oh, is that right? Would it be fair to say you didn't follow the argument? I don't understand much besides Colonel Cobb, to be honest. Of course you don't. If I could interject here, please do, sir. Now that this assertion of yours about the waxwork has been backed up by some solid evidence, it would be wrong of me as a man of science not to pursue the matter further. Oh, well, me too then. Sorry? If this brainy gentleman says he's right, then he must be. See, I wouldn't dream of going against Colonel Cobb or anyone who's got stuff in between the ears. Success, if you can call it that. Thank you, counsel. That will do. As a result of the summation examination, the jury's overall leaning has changed. 2 jurors now call guilty against 4 who call not guilty. Accordingly, the court has failed to reach a consensus at this time. And the trial must continue. We did it. Oh, well done. Another wonderful victory. A waxwork of the despicable professor used as a body double for the victim in this quite extraordinary case. I must say it's extremely hard to believe the assertion could possibly be true. However, it would appear that it does at least warrant further investigation. It's the waxwork of the professor that links Mr. Drebber to Dr. Sight, and I'm convinced that there's a special significance to that link. I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't. The truth, sir, by using evidence and testimony. If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of the waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness. The owner? Madame Tuspels. I really thought that Lord Van Zykes would object to this whole line of inquiry. Very well, I concur. Make arrangements for Madame Tuspels to appear as a witness with immediate effect. Listen carefully, my learned friend. Oh, yes? You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box. The court shall now adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witness and prepare her for taking the stand. Madame Tuspels. Yes, I shall see to it at once, my lord. Oh my god. I actually thought it would just kind of go through the whole thing. Ah, the knight errant himself. Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes? I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least. I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself. I have to ask, what on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What's this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've ever met before. Who even is he? Oh, of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago. Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. But who knew the monster would come knocking at your door? My heart felt sympathies. As it turns out, Lord Van Zykes is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realize, isn't he? Yes, how true. His great friend from university in the dock. And now a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance too. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man. You make it sound deliberate. I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling. Oh yes? In what particular manner? Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Van Zykes. It seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow. Yes, in fact, I alone am not a member of the set. Though that leaves me as an empty set, all alone, with no intersection to any other. Excuse me. Dr. Scythe? Ah, Dr. Courtney Scythe, near Stevens. Good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you. What in particular, pray? You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you? Why would you assume such a thing? Because Gregson told me. To think it'd been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory wielding my scalpel. I smell of nothing but corpses and disinfectant. A policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you as it happens, Dr. Scythe, and I accused you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened. That certainly won't be possible. Lord Van Zykes won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case, but please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me. But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice. I've always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets, none at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you. She mentioned it too, this Pandora's box. Whatever does it all mean? There's really no cause for concern. I assure you, when the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you'd like it or not. Huh? Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery. The edge of my seat awaits. I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much. Yes, one word of warning before I go. If, in the course of the trial this afternoon, you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. Alright, I understand. Thank you. Good, I shall make myself scarce then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, so I shall be gnawing on that as you gnaw away at the truth. What did that warning from Mr. Sholmes really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. It's time for the final chapter then. I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready to and able to continue? The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready. As the court is aware, the case under scrutiny began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. Yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation, as seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord. So then, let us begin our exploration of the defense's assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Van Zykes, my lord. Are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Tussspells? Not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak and ready to be summoned. Very well. Bring in the witness. At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tuspels to the stand. Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Drebber is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Sight. And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork. Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present it's all we have to go on. State your name and occupation for the court, please. My name is Madame Esmeralda Tuspels. I am a waxwork artisan, and the proprietress of the Madame Tuspels Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are 2 of them in the world. Oh my, what expression is she carving onto that face? A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this? Oui, that is true. At first, we believed it had been kidnapped. A waxwork model kidnapped? Yes, my lord. There was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim. At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odie Osman. But of course, I know him well. He is a part of my odious personages exhibit. I detest to say that it is what is evident, but Mr. Osman does not resemble the professor at all. Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar? Are you suggesting that we should see now the demasked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock. This is absurd. Pardon? I don't know what face you've carved onto your fancy figure beneath that mask, but clearly it won't be that of the actual killer. Indeed, the man's identity was never made public after all. The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a closely guarded national secret. There is no possible way that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hands on that information. Quel dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the Tuspels' principles. What principles? The family Tuspels has always prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voila our principles. There is a well-known legend about the Tuspels' waxworks from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Tuspels family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oui, that is true. It was a century ago now. I believe the queen's face was carved in the minutes of her death, actually at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still today in the House of Horrors. We Tuspels will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects. Dear me, a somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose. It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family's secret for generations. Do you mean to say that beneath that mask? Oui, the true visage of the killer is there. This is ludicrous. It's out of the question. The professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tuspels' special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer, emerging from his own grave, it is a sight to behold. You should come. I think, Madame, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in its creation. With pleasure. The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with Tuspel's family principles. I enlisted the aid of the grave digger and created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered. The grave digger, the man sanctioned this? Oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew, only the grave digger. What harm did it do, eh? So you truly saw it? The face of that monster? Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret, but Tuspels would not be Tuspels if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures. I don't believe this. I myself have seen the special exhibit at your museum, madame. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave. The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time. The special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened, as reported by the eyewitness who saw it. The 10-year-old article has been added. Man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words. The public enjoy absurdity, monsieur. That is why I have reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum. And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibition, wasn't it? That is correct. The professor you see before you here. Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination. This waxwork links Drebber to Dr. Sight, and there has to be some reason for that which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Sight and Drebber were in on this crime together. Okay, we already know an impression of the visage that was taken directly from the corpse. Is that true of every waxwork in your museum, then? It is, assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time. All the time, you know. What sort of letters? When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me, comme ça. No. My museum is famous, monsieur. To be made into a waxwork is an honor, and for some criminals, a symbol of status even. Because nothing says hardened criminal better than wax. And it is thanks to one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. I refer to the star of the special exhibit, of course, the professor, whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse. There are no exceptions to the principles of Tuspels. The aid of the... Okay, who is this grave digger? Was he the grave digger at the time? Surely that's illegal, isn't it? It would seem the proprietress of this repository of novelties was blinded by monetary greed. It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That's why I had to sculpt him, to record his history. It is the raison d'etre of the Tuspels Museum. But if the man was convicted in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but the members of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity. I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the professor. Do you realize what you're saying? The professor's identity is a national secret. I understand. And now that the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close. Of course it will, as will your entire museum if you don't tread carefully, madame. That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think, don't you? So 10 years ago, on the night of the professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse? Oui, exactement. I hid myself until he... Okay, but who is this guy? Like, who is the grave digger? Was Mr. Drever not the grave digger? You were there longer than you expected to be? I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open and I had some problems with the chin. Dare I ask? The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing and consequently his chin would not align itself correctly. Oh, oh dear, what a horrible thought. Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and as a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time. What do you mean? When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death. Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant? It is because of rigor mortis. A Wrigley mortis? It's the name given to a phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state. The effect is often used to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered. Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one. As the mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaw. I see. So that's why you wait. Before that time, the mouth falls open, and it is very difficult to do my work. It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. I wonder about that information the courts just heard from Madame Tussbells. Oh, I pressed it by... Okay, yeah, it might be significant. The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us, would you mind including it in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see. Of course, I do not mind at all. I can't help feeling after this latest topic that the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave. This is no time for jokes. Madame, kindly amend your testimony as discussed. Bien, sir. Took me before the onset of rigor mortis. Oh, we had a newspaper. Let's see, newspaper. Or what does it say? A newspaper recounting the tale of an eyewitness to the alleged resurrection. So, I mean, we know he was there. I guess it's not that. Contract's not important. Oh, wait, death by hanging confirmed at midnight. Midnight, and then she'd have to wait 3 hours. Wait, midnight? He died at midnight. I guess it would make sense to leave like in the middle of the night when like nobody was around to like see it. Or actually, they did it in private. So what did she give a time? She had to wait 3 hours. Oh wait, 10 hours, right? Because she said that that his job. Yeah, what the fuck? If he died at midnight and then 10 hours, she gets there 10 hours later at least. Wouldn't it be like in the afternoon? Madame Tussbells, I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows. And? Is that a problem? I believe it is because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another. Well, I don't know what that word means. Oh no. My French is not good. Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend? According to her testimony, Madame Tussbells was creating her wax impression just before dawn, and at that time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, Madame? You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis 2 or 3 hours after death, but the man's chin was limp, so he cannot have been dead for a long time. Oh, wait, what? Oh, maybe I got it. Wait, what did they say? I thought they said something like 10 hours. They said after 10 hours, the muscles relax. Oh, but on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Scythe's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th June. No. If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would already have set in. Oui, yes, you are right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff. In other words, this report is wrong. No coroner makes mistakes when recording the time of death. The very idea is absurd. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time. Possible. Order! Counsel, this is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate members of staff at Barclay Prison where the execution took place. By heck, extraordinary. Not in my day. They gave him like a southern accent. My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact. What fact? The professor died that night, without question. He did. Of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaw with my own hands. There was no... Yes, the professor died that night, but what if he didn't die at the gallows? Didn't die at... Are you insane? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case? It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night. Counsel, present the evidence at once. The evidence that allegedly explains what really happened. It's this article, right? Because he was involved. This one. I think this one. What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery. You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now? Well, if this article is to be believed, yes, the professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again. Don't be a fool. That's simply a rumor published by the gutter press. Can you be certain of that? Are you serious? The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened. My word, yes indeed. May we, the young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night. Of course there was a witness, the story didn't write itself, but obviously the man made it all up. And in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There surely would be no hope in finding him. It says his name in the damn article. People, read the article. On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well. What? Are you suggesting, counsel, that you've identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen this utterly incredible events take place? Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say that he's right here before my very eyes. You will substantiate your latest claim now then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness? This guy. The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber. Drebber? The previous witness? The special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tussauds Museum of Waxwork recreates the decade-old scene in great detail. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber. Order! Times 3. Surely not, Counsel. Drebber was there? In Lowgate Cemetery? What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant? Of course, Madame Tussbells doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, Madame. To your situation as well, in fact. What situation? The theft of the Professor waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man. No, but that would mean... Madame Tussbells, it would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber. Oui, yes, I know it, but from long ago in the past. What? Oh my, good gracious. Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know. Yes, of course. The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown in the court. You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article? Goodness me, yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London and a resident of its student dorms. Unbelievable. When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit for my house of horrors, whether it was the truth or not. I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt the waxwork of the man, did you? Exactement. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork, and since that time it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery. So, 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today, even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Ostman but the same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated Dr. Scythe would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why? Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying? Dr. Scythe put her name onto a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who is still alive, a criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect, which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. My lord, this court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected. But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case? She told us so herself, didn't she? Yeah, Lord Van Zykes won't be summoning me as a witness. He forbids it. Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zykes. The prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped. But Lord Van Zykes, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's office. The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me. Yes. Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Saif both take the stand together. Order. Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Saif of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders. Alright then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Saif. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could have never been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away. I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out.